It's 2:40 on a Tuesday. You're staring at an email you've now read 3 times. Not a complicated email, 4 sentences, and you still can't tell your fingers what to type back. An hour ago, you sat down to finish one report. You've opened it, closed it, opened a browser tab, closed that too, and somehow 40 minutes are gone and the report has one new sentence in it. 1. Here's the part you don't say out loud. Not even to your spouse. You've started keeping a notepad next to your keyboard because you no longer trust yourself to remember what you were doing 2 minutes ago. You used to run entire projects out of your head. Now you write down, "check on Marcus," like it's a foreign phrase you might forget. You remember a version of yourself who could sit down after dinner and read for 2 hours straight, who could hold a phone number in their head long enough to dial it. That version feels like a different person now, and some days you're not sure where they went. And the thought that shows up, the one you swat away because it feels too much like giving up, is that maybe your brain just isn't what it used to be. Maybe this is just what 48 looks like. Maybe everyone your age is quietly falling apart at their desks and nobody talks about it. But the research on cognitive aging tells a completely different story, and it's not the one you've been telling yourself. What's actually happening to you at that desk is one of the most precisely engineered disruptions of human attention ever built into a piece of software. Not built to make you slower on purpose, built to make something else faster. Engagement, response time, the next click. Your slowness is the byproduct, and once you see the mechanism, you will never look at your inbox the same way again. Let's start with age, because it's the explanation that feels the most honest. You're not 25 anymore. Your brain has fewer years of runway left than it used to. That seems like a reasonable place to put the blame. But here's the problem. Cognitive scientists have been measuring this for decades, and the shape of age-related decline does not match what you're describing. Timothy Salthouse, who has spent his career at the University of Virginia tracking cognitive aging across tens of thousands of adults, found that processing speed declines at roughly 0.02 of a standard deviation per year, starting in your 20s. That's not a cliff. That's an almost imperceptible slope, the kind of change you'd need a stopwatch and a spreadsheet to even notice. Meanwhile, the abilities built on accumulated experience, the ones researchers call crystallized intelligence, judgment, vocabulary, pattern recognition built from decades of actually doing your job, don't decline at your age at all. They're still climbing. Most of that research places the peak somewhere in your late 40s to mid-50s, holding steady well into your 70s. So if age were the real story here, you'd expect a slow, boring fade, the kind you might not even notice year to year. Instead, you're describing something else entirely, a sudden inability to hold a single thought long enough to finish it, a change that seemed to arrive all at once rather than creep in over a decade. That's not what a gradually aging brain feels like. A gradual decline doesn't explain why you could finish that same report in one sitting 5 years ago and can't get through it in 3 sittings now. It's not willpower either, and it's not age. Something else is doing this to you, something with a much shorter timeline than your birthday. So why can you sit through a 2-hour movie without checking your phone, but can't survive 15 minutes with a spreadsheet? Let's look at what's actually different about your workday, because the answer isn't in your neurons, it's in your software. Gloria Mark, a chancellor's professor at UC Irvine, has spent over 20 years watching knowledge workers with a stopwatch, then later with tracking software installed on their actual computers. In 2004, her team measured how long people spent on a single screen before switching to another one. The average was 2.5 minutes. By her most recent measurements, that number has collapsed to 47 seconds. 47 seconds? That's less time than it took you to read this paragraph. Here's the human translation. You are not choosing to abandon that report every 47 seconds. Your environment is built deliberately to interrupt you faster than your own brain can finish loading the problem into working memory. You never get the chance to go deep because something always arrives before you can. And once you're pulled away, coming back doesn't happen for free. Mark's research also found that after a full interruption, it can take up to 23 minutes to return to your original depth of focus. Not to notice the task again, to actually be back inside it, thinking at the level you were thinking before. Do the math on your own day. If you're interrupted even 6 or 7 times before lunch, you may never touch real depth again until everyone else has gone home. There's a name for part of what's happening in that gap. Sophie Leroy, a researcher who published her core findings in 2009, calls it attention residue. When you leave a task unfinished and move to a new one, a portion of your mind stays behind, still working the old problem, even while you're staring at the new one. Leroy found this hits hardest exactly when a task feels incomplete or rushed, which, if you think about it, describes almost everything on a modern to-do list. You're not failing to focus on the email in front of you. Part of you is still back in the meeting from 20 minutes ago, and another part is already bracing for the next ping. But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't only about individual notifications, it's about the structure of your entire day. In 2021, researchers in Microsoft's Human Factors Lab wired 14 people up to EEG caps and ran them through 2 versions of the same workday: 4 30-minute meetings back-to-back and 4 30-minute meetings with 10-minute breaks in between. In the back-to-back condition, beta wave activity, the pattern associated with stress, climbed steadily across the 2 hours and spiked hardest in the seconds right before each new meeting started. With breaks, that stress pattern reset each time instead of stacking. Translate that into your Tuesday. Your brain doesn't experience a full calendar the way you describe it in your head, as one continuous stretch of busy. It experiences it as an accumulating weight, each transition adding stress on top of the last, with no chance to come back down. By 2:40 in the afternoon, you're not working from a rested brain. You're working from one that has been climbing a stress curve since 9 a.m. and never got to land. None of this is a discipline problem. It's an infrastructure problem, and it was built this way before you ever logged in this morning. So here's a question almost nobody thinks to ask. Why does the human brain fall for this so completely? The answer splits into 2 halves, and both of them matter. The first half is old, genuinely old, 200,000 years old. For most of human history, a brain that constantly scanned its surroundings for new information, for changes in status, for anything unfamiliar, was a brain that survived. A rustle in the grass that turned out to be nothing cost you a few seconds of attention. A rustle in the grass you ignored could cost you everything. Novelty-seeking and status monitoring weren't flaws, they were the whole point, selected for across thousands of generations because the humans who paid attention to sudden change lived long enough to pass that trait along. That circuitry is still fully installed in you, unchanged, because 200,000 years is nothing in evolutionary time. It just used to scan a savanna. Now it scans a Slack channel. The second half is new, and it was built on purpose. In the mid-20th century, B.F. Skinner ran a series of experiments showing that behavior reinforced on an unpredictable schedule, sometimes rewarded, sometimes not, gets repeated far more compulsively than behavior rewarded every single time. Casino designers understood this decades before software did. Slot machines were engineered around exactly that principle. You never know which pull pays off, so you keep pulling. Now look at your inbox through that lens. You never know which refresh brings something interesting and which one brings nothing. That uncertainty is not an accident of design, it's the design. Lauren Brichter, the engineer who invented the pull-to-refresh gesture you use on your phone every day, told The Guardian in 2017, "Pull-to-refresh is addictive. Twitter is addictive. These are not good things." He built the mechanism. He watched it work exactly as a slot machine works, and he said so, plainly, on the record. This wasn't hidden from you. It was published, patented, and presented at conferences. The people who built modern software knew precisely which 200,000-year-old circuit they were pulling on. And this circuit doesn't care that you're 48 and running a department. It's the same circuit that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah, now pointed at a subject line. Now I want to tell you about a study that nobody talks about, because the finding seems to contradict everything you just heard. In 2017, researchers led by Adrian Ward at the University of Texas published a study showing that the mere presence of your own smartphone sitting face down, powered off, in another room could measurably reduce your available cognitive capacity, even when you weren't touching it. Just knowing it was nearby was enough to eat into your working memory. It's a striking finding. It's also one that other researchers have struggled to reproduce. A 2022 replication published in Acta Psychologica ran the same experimental conditions and found no measurable difference in performance based on where the phone was placed. Researchers still argue about how large this specific effect actually is, and that disagreement is real and worth taking seriously. But here's the deeper truth underneath the contradiction. The exact size of one narrow lab effect, the phone sitting silently in a drawer, is genuinely uncertain. What isn't uncertain, because it's been replicated across dozens of studies over 2 decades by multiple independent teams, is the cost of the interruptions your phone and your inbox actually deliver. The 47-second attention span, the residue that lingers after every switch, the stress that climbs across a meeting-packed day. Science correcting itself on one narrow claim doesn't undo the mountain of evidence sitting underneath it. If anything, it shows you which parts of this story you can trust the most. There's one last thing I need to tell you, and it might be the most important part of this video. Watch for this in yourself. The moment you catch your eyes moving across the same sentence for the 3rd time, not because it's difficult, but because your attention wasn't actually there for the first 2 passes. That's not a vocabulary problem. That's not an age problem. That's a sign your attention has been so thinly sliced across the day that there's nothing left to give a single paragraph. Pay attention too to how often you now need external structure just to hold a thought. Sticky notes, reminders, a notepad by the keyboard for things you used to simply carry in your head. Notice whether you can sit through a single meeting without your hand drifting toward your phone. Not because anything urgent is happening, just because your hand does it before you've decided to. A little scaffolding is smart. A lot of it, appearing suddenly, is worth noticing rather than dismissing. I want to be careful here. This isn't a diagnosis, and fragmented attention on its own doesn't mean something is clinically wrong with you. But if this feeling has become constant, if it's affecting your work, your relationships, or your sense of who you are, that's worth a real conversation with a doctor or a therapist, not something to quietly carry alone. Your attention is the one resource you can't get more of. You can earn back money. You can't earn back the hour you spent switching between 11 tabs instead of finishing one thing. It's the only currency you spend without ever seeing the bill. So the next time you're sitting at your desk at 2:40, staring at 4 sentences you can't seem to answer, notepad open beside you because you don't trust your own memory anymore, you'll know what's actually happening. It was never that you got old. Your judgment, your pattern recognition, the accumulated instincts that make you good at your job, those are still climbing, not falling. It was never a lack of discipline either. You are fighting an environment engineered deliberately by people who studied exactly which 200,000-year-old circuit to pull, and who built their entire product around interrupting you faster than your own mind can finish a thought. It was never you. It was the 47 seconds. It was the 23 minutes it takes to come back. It was every unfinished task leaving its residue behind while the next one demanded your attention anyway. That was always going to slow anyone down, at any age, in any decade of their career. You are not falling apart. You are operating inside a system built to fragment you, and you have been doing it with more resistance than you've ever given yourself credit for. The version of you who could read for 2 hours straight didn't disappear. That person is still in there, still capable, just asked to survive 47 seconds at a time, over and over, for years, without anyone telling you that's what was happening. If this changed how you look at your own inbox, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, what's the longest you've gone this week without checking something, without meaning to check it? Next time, I want to show you what happened when one company tried an experiment nobody expected to work, banning internal email entirely, and what it did to the way their employees actually thought.